The Berkeley City Council is called to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Mayo.
Here.
Moore.
Present.
Anderson.
Here.
Arreguin.
Here.
Capitelli.
Here.
Wengraff. Worthington.
Present.
Wozniak.
Here.
Mayor Bates.
Here. Okay.
Mayor Bates, I think we have we're coming up to our next item. I wanted to ask my aide to bring up the copies of the revised item on the Mercury Amalgam. Well, could we pass them out? We don't have them here on the dais.
Thank you, staff, for the report, too. By the way, it's actually quite interesting and quite well done. Thank you, staff. Thank you very much, staff. I think that you guys did a great job. Staff, congratulations. That was very well done.
Thank you, staff.
You just don't know what we want. Okay. So I'm not sure. We have actually, everybody who's here in the audience, we actually have a whole series of items here that relate to the same subject. They relate to exposure to mercury, and they relate to mercury. And we're going to take, there are actually, if you look at it, there's actually 5 different proposals that are before us. And so for the purposes of our discussion, we're going to take all of them up at once. So that means we're going to hear from the staff, and we're going to then hear from you all. And then when we heard from you all, we're going to have a wide range so we can make a decision based on all of the 5. Okay? Is everybody clear about that process? So, and is anybody here? Everybody here is planning to talk. Can I see your hands of people planning to talk? Yeah, everybody's planning to talk. Okay, well, we're going to have trouble getting it in by 11 o'clock, so you're going to have to go to 1 minute. I'm sorry. And you can yield. 3 people can yield, so you can have 4 minutes. 1 person can have 4 minutes. And we'll have to go after 11 o'clock this evening, it looks like, just on the basis of people, the number of hands raised. So I don't know how we'd like to do this. You're representing the commission, is that right? And you're both representing the commission?
I'm the Environmental Commission.
Oh, good. You're environmental health?
I'm the chair of the Community Environmental Advisory.
Okay. Well, if you guys don't mind, you're one of the 12 recommendation, one of the 5. Sorry, one of the 5 recommendations. So we're going to hear from the public, and then we'll get to you right after the public. Okay? Okay. Showtime. 1 minute. 1 minute. People wish to testify. I'm going to step out for the very few minutes, but I'll be back. And then Councilman Mayo will handle 1 minute. It's not very long, so you got to be quick.
You can have time given to you. You can yield. Someone can yield time to you. Is the clerk ready with the clock? Would you like to start?
My name is Chris Homme. My name is Chris Homme. I first raised this issue with Lori last year. Lori said, we've got a great commission process. Let's see what they can do. Well, the 2 commissions found that the amalgam debate is valid, that the public deserves to be informed, which is not happening now, and that the council should act. I don't know why Lori and Linda watered down the commission's recommendations, perhaps for the same reason that the FDA failed to act on the recommendations of its science advisory panel, which said that amalgam safety should be reviewed in light of the current science. The mercury issue today is like the lead issue decades ago. In both cases, the science on chronic toxicity is complicated, such that industry has been able to stall regulation. Like the story of lead, the story of mercury will soon be told, and you, the Berkeley City Council, now have a role in that story.
Thank you. Next speaker. People should know that there are revised items outside, revisions to what was appearing on the agenda, so they're out in the hallway. That's right.
my best Vanna White. Hi, my name's Lynn Reardon, and I just want to thank City Council Member Darrell Moore for his leadership in employee health for the City of Berkeley, for the transgender surgery, and I want to thank the rest of the Berkeley City Council for their leadership in caring about people's health, especially on the previous item. Councilmember Anderson, you know, the issue of testing, and I think this is similar too, that we have here a very mild proposal just to, you know, give people the information about amalgam at a time when they'll be able to make a decision. And there's a lot of people that are not scientists, that aren't, you know, working in a science field, that actually need to hear about this, you know, and I think it would have a disproportionate benefit for people who have less money. So I strongly urge you to continue to show the leadership you have in caring for people's health. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Kelly Gallagher, and I'm playing a video. If we could play the Mercury.Berkeley City Council movie. Thank you so much.
You have a.
We had people giving up time for this.
Okay, could we hear from them so I can keep track of the people who are giving up time for this? We can get, is it a maximum of 3 minutes, Mark? 4 minutes. We need 3 other people to yield their time into the microphone, please. 3 other people to yield their time into the microphone.
I yield my time.
Thank you.
I yield my time.
Thank you. 1 other person.
I yield my time.
Thank you. And now we have a video coming up.
Manufacturers are required to know the toxicology profile of their products as part of the controls that they have over their products. The risk is not assessed in terms of any absolute amount or characteristic of the toxicology, but in the context of the risk and benefits in clinical use.
You were here for the previous panel. Yeah. Researchers and scientists that testified that said that when you chew, when you brush your teeth, when you have hot coffee or a hot substance in your mouth, vapors are emitted, and when you chew, some of it flakes off over a period of time, goes into your body. Has there ever been a study done on cadavers, people that have had a lot of fillings in their mouth, to see what the mercury content is in the brain that you know of?
The studies that they cited are the same studies that we reviewed in our process of looking at the literature. And how that relates to our classification is to look at the product in actual use and to look at the risk and benefit. All implants, including hip implants, jaw implants that are made of metal, have metals that leach into the body, plastic materials have volatiles, and we assess all of those exposures. It's not a question whether or not there's an exposure. The question is whether there's adequate evidence that the exposure causes clinical effects.
These other substances you're talking about, though, steel, plastic, they're not in the same class as mercury, are they?
There are problematic compounds that in very low amounts are, for example, there's cadmium in the alloys of hip implants. And
now this cadmium, is that consistent with mercury as far as toxicity?
Well, my point is that we...
No, is it? I mean, is it toxic as mercury to the human body?
It has to be put in the context of the level of exposure and what the effect is and how that's offset by the benefits.
You mean to tell me cadmium is as toxic a substance as mercury? Is that what you're saying? Come on.
What I'm trying to do is put it in the context of how FDA regulates products. We do not assess the environment. We do not assess the effect of pure compounds and absolute toxicity.
You do agree?
We look at how they're used in practice.
You do agree, though, that mercury vapors leach out of the tooth?
Yes, we do agree with that.
And that it is ingested into the body in part?
Yes, we do agree with that.
And it gets into the bloodstream?
Yes.
And it goes to the brain and other organs of the body?
Yes, we agree with that.
And mercury has a cumulative effect in the brain?
That is less certain, but there's literature on both sides. It's the clinical impact, though, that is the standard for taking action on medical devices, not the toxicology, not the ability to take preventive actions, but the actual observed effects.
You know, I don't understand why many people in this country, probably the majority, don't know that there's mercury in a silver filling in their mouth, an amalgam. Why is it the FDA doesn't at least, since mercury vapors do escape into the mouth and into the body, why doesn't the FDA at least make people aware of that? Well, why not publicize that?
The FDA's...
Thank you.
I yield my minute to continue the video.
We only have 4, sorry.
Okay.
I think we got it.
You turn on the light, please. Lights, camera, action. Okay, thank you. You guys are going to have to be... You're up, sir.
Next speaker.
Yes, well, the minute is to yield the video. Why can we not continue the video?
How long is the video?
1 more minute.
Oh, come on.
1 minute.
You know?
Is it 1 more minute?
Yeah, 1 more minute.
Okay, all right, we'll hear. So 1 more. It goes over 1 more minute. We're going to throw you off the balcony.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, 1.7. 1 minute and 7 seconds. Oh, not 7 seconds.
Authority on information about products has to do with the labeling of the products, and only rarely does the FDA actually directly intervene in the way that products are described or presented in informed consent. That's practice of medicine, which the FDA is asked not to get involved in.
I do have a response to that. There are, as was mentioned before, some European countries that have decided to err on the side of caution in combination with some environmental concerns in those countries, and that the labeling has been a universal labeling issue, and that because these companies sell their product worldwide, they decided to put all of those in the labeling. I can quote from a recent FDA document that was dated March 2002 that basically says that they can no longer do that.
I'm just talking about making people aware.
I think that's a reasonable request to do that.
Well, then why I would make that request that the FDA.
See, he lied to me. No. Okay, thank you. I think we got the drift. Okay, thank you so much.
I didn't come here for this issue, but enough people were talking to me about it that it became really, really interesting. Because I have a feeling, and never once did the dentist who put it in talk to me about the materials. It is an issue of consent. If someone's going to put something in your body, you should be told, and by the way, we're going to put mercury in your tooth. I'm also kind of curious about the effects on people with neurological disabilities to have mercury in their body. So tomorrow I'm actually going to call my dentist and ask, what did you put in my mouth? And if it is mercury, what are the methods and the costs of taking it out and putting something else less toxic?
Hello, my name is Dr. Norma Solars. I'm a dentist. I've been practicing at a local federally qualified community health center in Oakland for 32 years. And I came to state that this discussion of regulating the use of dental amalgam for health reasons is a distraction, a red herring, so to speak. I want to remind the good people assembled here that the greater underlying cause of harm, disability, and potentially death is untreated dental disease, lack of access, lack of financial resources, or lack of education. The children and adults cared for at safety net clinics will be substantially harmed if overreaching city regulations are enacted. The dental profession is already in compliance with regulations that control the consent process and the use and disposal of dental amalgam. Let's focus on the real known causes of dental disease and disability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Ventura, and I'm here on behalf of an organization called Clean Water Action. For the last 10 years, I have been blood and sweat and a lot of tears working on cleanup plans for both San Francisco Bay and the Delta for mercury. And while the problem, the environmental problem, is certainly not caused strictly by dental amalgam, it's a historic problem. We have no more capacity in our environment for mercury waste. Now, we have found that when the waste is diverted out of dental offices, there is a reduction in our wastewater, and that is a significant benefit. However, it does not resolve the problem because you still have toxic waste that has now been collected and has to be managed. We certainly believe in stopping pollution at the source, but more importantly, we believe that people have the right to know what all of the ramifications of their choices are so they can make informed decisions. And that's what I came to say tonight.
Thank you very much.
My name is Mark Elfield. We're here because the FDA has not responded to studies presented at their safety hearing 3 years ago. Since then, there have been 4 reanalyses of the best study ever done on dental amalgam. That study indicated safety. The 4 new studies all show harm. And 2 of those new studies, which the health commissions have not yet had a chance to see, show a direct relationship with the number of amalgam surfaces and biomarkers of harm. In response to what we're told, in response to that, we're told amalgams are cheap, they're durable, and they're the best for certain jobs. But what happened to the safety question? Rather than discuss the studies, we're told that the FDA says amalgams are safe. But that's why we're here in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I yield my time to Dr. Ward Eccles.
Thank you.
I yield my time to Dr. Eccles.
I also yield my time to Dr. Eccles.
Hello, Dr. Eccles. Welcome.
Yeah, really. I don't yield. My name is Ward Eccles. I'm a dentist and grew up in Oakland, practiced for 20 years in San Leandro. I'm in Livermore now for 20 years. I'm mercury-free, I'm happy to say, for 32 years. And 1980 was the last time I did one. Dr. Kennedy here is going to be testing for mercury vapor coming off of this gentleman's amalgam fillings. We tested initially about 1 microgram per cubic millimeter in the area, and we'll be testing him to see what's coming off his teeth after he's been chewing for a while. For the last 25 years, I've been hearing from organized dentistry, it won't last. These composites will wear down, they'll leak, it'll cause sensitivity, it can't be used where the teeth cannot be dried. I have never not been able to place a composite resin where I would previously have placed mercury amalgam. In the manufacturer and dental school instructions, it is stated that mercury amalgam needs to be placed in a dry field. Otherwise, it will expand and corrode. This results in cracking the tooth structure that does not expand. Then that leads to larger fillings, eventually crowns, and often progresses to needing root canals and eventually extraction. This entire progression can be entirely avoided by making the first filling a sealant or composite, not mercury amalgam. Then the tooth has minimal damage due to drilling. It is strengthened 100% back to what it was, not mercury amalgam. It doesn't do that. Then the tooth has minimal damage due to drilling and is strengthened, if it has composite, like I said, to 100%, whereas if it was amalgam, it would be 70% loss of strength to that tooth. Since 1985, there have been excellent composite resins for posterior teeth if placed according to the composite resin technique, not mercury amalgam. I've personally had the opportunity to do it for many years and follow my patients, and I see them at 20 and 25 years. They're holding up just fine. So there's a lot of stories about saying they don't, but if they're put in right, they do. Have you got a measurement?
I got an 8, 9, and a 10.
And starting out with 1. And we steam a whole lot higher than that with more mercury amalgams in the mouth. Are we doing another one or just that one?
What's the scale?
Micrograms.
Per cubic meter. So that's just one we're doing?
I'd like you to do just the average.
Say again?
What's a normal range?
None. Well, you don't want to have any. The Cal EPA standard is 1. US EPA is 10. Okay? If he was a workplace, OSHA would shut him down. All right? All right. Risk analysis has been done by for Health Canada and FDA by Mark Richardson, PhD. There is absolutely no similarity when comparing toxicity of composite resin to mercury amalgam. Would you expect anything else? Opponents like to bring up BPA and resins to counter the mercury danger in amalgam. Results of the risk analysis have never shown anything near the same degree of toxicity as mercury amalgam. It was like comparing a small moon of Jupiter to the sun. Don't believe the stories from these people and organizations that continue to hide behind claims that are just that, only claims. Show me the science is the motto of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, the IAOMT. This kind of started in dental school about how amalgam was. Saliva coated the amalgam, preventing mercury from leaking. Then it was, well, the amount of mercury emitted is minuscule. Then it was no known disease is caused by it. And they're right. It just kills you. But it does mimic the symptoms of many, many diseases. Then there was, well, it's been used for 150 years. Then it was the poor. They have to have mercury amalgam. There have been more excuses. It's a bunch of crap. It's toxic going in, and when we take it out, it's toxic. How could it not be?
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Chow, and I would like to show a 1-minute video, the ADA Seal of Acceptance.
For over 75 years, consumers and dental professionals have looked for the American Dental Association's Seal of Acceptance on products. The ADA seal stands for quality and effectiveness. Manufacturers who apply for the seal must meet certain criteria. They must provide objective data supporting the product's safety.
Well, my name's Dr. Mike Fleming. I'm the former consumer representative on the dental products panel at the FDA. The amalgam was grandfathered in the 70s, having been on the market for almost 200 years. And if amalgam is taken to a Class 3 by the FDA, Class 3 would require manufacturers to prove safety, which they never had to do. They've never done any safety studies on this product. They're not going to spend the millions of dollars to try to prove that mercury is safe when everyone knows it isn't.
All product claims made on packaging and labeling.
That was a 1 minute.
We got it.
Thank you.
I think we got it.
Next, please.
Next speaker.
Next speaker.
I've been asked to yield my time to the next speaker, so I yield my time.
Oh. Can you just come forward?
We're both yielding our time to James Rhoda.
Sure, come on. Quick, the time is moving. Time is money, something like that.
I'm yielding my time to Dr. James Rhoda.
She almost knocked me over. Good evening. I'm not going to hopefully take too much time other than maybe clear away some of the confusion. I'm a practicing dentist for 52 years, practicing biologically. I'm considered a biological dentist today. I would consider a biological dentist as a dentist that's concerned with the possible toxicities that we've been putting in the mouth and the possible substitute that we can be using. I used to teach at UCLA. In fact, I was the developer of the program there on the efficient placement of mercury filling that I took over from the Navy that I did research on. I taught that mercury was inert when you mix silver, tin, zinc, and copper, and therefore I taught it was inert. And we now know that it's a scientific impossibility. And I'm not going to go through the toxicities of mercury. Many individuals have already addressed that, and you should know that just by looking at Google. Everything I say here to you can verify. Okay? But I'm saying that this is important what you're doing today, really. There's a lot of already laws mandated that this is a concern, and it is a deep concern that you have an opportunity of doing something about it. Many of the students, many of the dentists here are students that I taught. I'm here kind of responding to my bucket list, saying that before I die, I'm 79, before I die, I have a responsibility to clarify the confusion. Mercury is a toxin. The reason why I told them it was inert, because when I went to the library to look for all the information about mercury, it wasn't there. It didn't show me that it was toxic. Why? We didn't smell it, because it's a colorless, odorless vapor. We didn't smell it. We didn't see it. And the big thing, when we'd go to the physician with our symptoms of mercury toxicity, they would do conventional blood tests and urine tests. You do not find mercury in conventional blood tests and urine tests. It holds up in the fats. That's why it causes the neurological disorders that you're seeing. So the big problem is that mercury is a toxin that affects people differently depending upon the susceptibility of the host. Genetically, physiologically, nutritionally, exercise. So these are the varying things that we're concerned with today. Mercury is a toxin. It should be not in our mouth. It shouldn't be implanted in our teeth. It should be on the face of the planet. It's a toxin. And there's enough laws already right now that says to you, hey, how could the AD already has agreed that we should have a separator in the office. How many of us have a separator when there's already a mandate by the EPA saying that we should have separators? But we have, I guess, said by the ADA, no, we will do it voluntarily. That was in 2010. We have not voluntarily put separators in our office today, and we're polluting the environment. Look at on EPA, 2010. They'll tell you. So all you're doing is you're carrying through mandates that are already there. Mercury is a toxin. That's not an issue. There's no safe dose for mercury. And the people that are saying there's no scientific evidence, when I started to research this, I was astonished to see the number of articles that show me that mercury is toxic. And now I can see on television to see the vapors coming out of the tooth. Kennedy back here did a video, the smoking tooth, and you can see the stuff coming out of the tooth. And you've got the Jerome Vapor Analyzer, $8,000 instrument. It's mercury, it's toxic. I'm overdue, but I'm sorry. The most important thing is that you have the information to make a decision that's important.
Thank you.
I yield my time to Dave Rana.
I also yield my time to Dave Rana.
I'm also speaking in support of Councilmember Regowin's proposal, as opposed to the compromise, in the hope that we might get something with teeth, pun intended. I am a Berkeley resident. I do vote. 1820, that's when this stuff was first introduced. We've been suffering with the effects of this for 200 years. For 100 years, we've known that mercury off-gases from these fillings. Right? That experiment was very simple. You take a tooth with a filling in it, you stick it in a glass tube, you seal both ends, you bend it at 90 degrees, you hold the tooth end at body temperature, you put the other end in liquid nitrogen, and you wait. All right? The vaporizing mercury collects in the cold end. Then you can measure how much you get. All right? So this isn't rocket science. We've also known the health effects of mercury for at least 500 years. And medicine used to use it extensively for treating syphilis. In fact, until the early 1900s, the only things that medicine had to offer us were mercury, arsenic, antimony, laudanum, which is opium, and leeches. Okay, that was it. So this is the background out of which these amalgam fillings come. Right? These silver fillings, so-called, that was a bit of propaganda. These silver fillings were placed by barbers. They were stuck in there with the thumb. Okay, you know, that's the background. All right, so the questions here are not a matter of science. As somebody mentioned earlier, it's very edifying to look at the history of lead to see how this all works. It's really a matter of institutional interests, of financial interests. I think people here may know that the ADA holds a patent on amalgam. And it's also a question of passivity and acquiescence in the face of these interests. So I hope that won't be continued here. Now, I'll just, since it seems that personal experiences have some relevance, I'll say a few words about my own. I'm a mathematical physicist. I was a mathematical physicist. I attended attended and taught at the best universities on the face of this planet, including MIT and Princeton, UC Berkeley and Columbia. As I was teaching, things sort of started to go south. I started to have symptoms that were kind of psychological. The symptoms were things like anxiety and depression, difficulty concentrating, difficulty understanding people's intentions. Right? So I did what I do, which is I quit teaching. I went back to school. I got another doctorate, this time in psychology. Right? Now, while I was writing my thesis in psychology, I then got very, very sick and had to discover that this was not a matter of emotional problems. These were a matter of toxicological problems, neurological problems. So then I had to train myself in how to treat that. All right, so I'll just say that in my immediate circle, I've got a mathematician, a physicist, a chemist, the MD, DDS, a toxicologist. Yeah, so this is called a chemical brain drain, and this has to stop, really.
Good evening. I'm here to yield my time to Kristen Mills.
Good evening, Mayor, esteemed council. My name is Kristen Mills. I'm a traditional naturopath and co-founder of Californians for Green Dentistry. Mercury is the #1 hazardous, non-radioactive substance on Earth. There is no safe level of mercury exposure. On a cellular level, particularly in neurotoxicity, there is no threshold below which mercury exposure is safe. Mercury is notorious for accumulating in the body and is known to produce symptoms and disease, including chronic fatigue syndrome, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, hormone imbalance, Alzheimer's, dementia, fibromyalgia, migraines, ADD, ADHD, and more. In addition, dental mercury is the largest contributor of mercury poisoning in wastewater. As Berkeley has long been in the forefront of progressive and environmental thought in California, we continues leading the U.S. with cutting-edge ecological and health initiatives. We are certain that you will continue your commitment and promotion in favor of the safety and well-being of your citizens and remain a significant and vigilant steward of our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Bates.
So I have it's 10:56. Yeah. We need a motion to extend. It looks like 11:30 is optimistic, but I think we should try
11:30.
Huh?
Yeah, so moved.
Second. Okay. Is there objection to this being voted aye? Okay, we're going to extend to 11:30. So you guys who a point has been made, you might consider not making it. Just say I agree with the speaker, because if you want a decision to be made this evening, it's going to have to be made between now and 11:30. So you look at at least 15 people, 20 people wanting to speak. So you do the math, and we usually talk a lot.
I will be playing a 1-minute video.
Okay, why don't we have the next person while they're working out the logistics of this.
As you have a little more time.
Yeah.
I cede my time to the next speaker.
Okay.
I cede my time as well.
David Burns is a dentist in Tennessee, and off we went.
Okay, she has 4 minutes. She's come forward.
Dental amalgam in the country, Kerr Corporation. Kerr's warnings are published.
This is the 1-minute video.
Okay.
Would you like me to restart?
Okay, give it to her. 1 minute. Barnes versus Kerr.
And off we went against the largest manufacturer of dental amalgam in the country, Kerr Corporation. Kerr's warnings are published in material safety data sheets that they're required to distribute with their product. But the warning essentially said that mercury is a neurotoxin, and all the things that Kerr was warning about happen to Burns. When dentists go to dental school, they're taught that mixed dental amalgam is completely inert. And so when a dentist goes in to grind out an amalgam filling, he is creating tremendous quantities of mercury particulate. But Burns was absorbing tremendous amounts, thousands of micrograms of mercury a day. Kerr tells us its warning is adequate. We say, no, it's not. The vast majority of the mercury going into the system is from this mixed dental amalgam. To my surprise, the district court said the manufacturer didn't say that the poisonous mercury would be any less poisonous when mixed with the other dental amalgam constituents. The appellate court, in a published opinion, also felt mixed dental amalgam was completely poisoned.
Okay, you have 4 minutes. The next person. Is there another film?
No, it's a PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Well, then we're going to hear that. Well, she has 4 minutes. The next person can come until you get it set up, because time is of the essence.
I'm ready.
You're ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
we're
go.
all set. I am Marisa Russo, and I've been a dental hygienist for 20 years. The purpose of this presentation is to show you that dental mercury controls the immune system. It controls oxygen transport, it controls cholesterol, and dental mercury initiates autoimmune diseases like MS, ALS, leukemia, and diabetes. University postgraduate studies show the ability of white blood cells to kill bacteria can be close to 100% in healthy humans. With the exposure of the amount of mercury that can be found from the placement of the 8 amalgams that the average American has, the effectiveness of the lymphocytes can drop from 98% to 21% in 4 days. And this is not shown in conventional blood tests. As seen by flow cytometry, white blood cells called the T lymphocytes can drop from normal to flatline dead in 1 week after mercury exposure. Here we have 4 diagnosed patients with MS. This represents 8 spinal taps before and after dental mercury removal. After dental revisions, the second column shows the toxins have disappeared. All 4 patients showed dramatic improvement, including one who got out of the wheelchair permanently. Red cells are transportation system for oxygen. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules. Mercury has a higher attraction to hemoglobin than the oxygen does. Let 2 molecules of mercury bind to hemoglobin, and that binding site is permanent, and you have lost 50% of your oxygen saturation. How would you feel with 50% less oxygen? Could this be related to chronic fatigue? And one of the most surprising things in my studies is that mercury controls cholesterol. The low cholesterols went up 10, 20, 30 milligrams %, and the highs came down 10, 20, 30, 40 milligrams % in 1 week after dental mercury removal. No drugs. Some autoimmune diseases are stimulated by mercury. Here, MS is shown from 1970 to 1975 to be about 8,800 new cases per year. Then the introduction of high copper amalgams came in 1976, which gives off 50 times more mercury than prior to 1976. The first year, 8,800 new cases went up to 123,000 new cases, and it continued to rise since then. The invention of the high copper amalgams was paid for and patented by the good old American Dental Association, which is why, in my opinion, so many of them are here today to protect the investments of the ADA. ALS also increased after 1976, and same thing with diabetes. I hope this information can convince you that it is time to stop this travesty. Whether you are rich or poor, male or female, a child or an adult, mercury does not belong in your head. So, Honorable Council of Berkeley, in my opinion, tonight you could either protect the American Dental Association or you can protect the people of Berkeley. Tonight it is your vote. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bobby, and I'd like to yield my time.
Tonight, my name is Diane. I'd like to give my time to Dr. Byatt.
Thank you. Well, I hope I woke everybody up here. I did that because I was the first PE major to ever attend the UCLA School of Dentistry. And when I went there, I had a different background than everybody else. I hope we all wake up. That was the other purpose. I graduated from UC Davis and worked in the Human Performance Lab for 4 years. While I was at UCLA, I worked as the first exercise physiologist at Northridge Hospital. I worked very closely with critical care people. There was a spinal cord unit. With all the work I've done, I also had a couple of mentors that worked a lot with me with research. I've also been the Caldipac chair for the Monterey Bay Dental Society. In 2003, I introduced a resolution to the House of Delegates to educate the dentists, the leaders only, on mercury. I wasn't invited back. No surprise. Besides doing research with humans, I had degrees in psychology, so I've had a chance to look at this profession and wonder about it. You know, we've been using mercury far longer than 160 years. It comes out to 180 years. I don't understand why my colleagues can argue to continue to use technology that's old. Neurotoxicity means nerve poison, and yet they talk about allergies. Probably a few people are allergic to mercury, but everyone in the room here is toxic to it. The dentists, I'll tell you right now, are undereducated when it comes to physiology. How do I know that? I taught pre-med and pre-dental students at UC Davis exercise physiology. So I know. And when I got to UCLA and took the courses in physiology, honestly speaking, didn't enhance what I already knew. Matter of fact, I was told that I'd scored higher than anybody in the history of the school on the physiology exam. So by then, the school was about 20 years old, so you imagine 100 students per year. That puts me at the front of the line of 2,000 people. So when you start comparing what the dentists know, I'm going to tell you right now, they don't know this stuff. They haven't studied toxicology. They haven't gotten the information they need on physiology. And the citizens here are asking you to take a stand like you have on other things. You know, it's the policymakers that will do things. Now, how does this all work physiologically? Your mouth is in the middle of your head. Your thyroid's here, your pituitary's here. They communicate and they distribute hormones. Your brain is up here. You have 24 cranial nerves. The vagus goes to the heart, lungs, and digestive system. All of those are being polluted by mercury, all of them. And when you look at the effects of taking mercury out of people, that's when you see people get healthy. Epidemiological studies don't tell you things. You've got to detox people like I've been able to do in my office. I would invite all the other dentists to do the same thing. They'll learn what I've learned. Thank you.
I will be playing a 1-minute video, Learned Intermediary for Berkeley.
The majority of dentists are aware that under the learned intermediary doctrine, healthcare practitioners are bound by law to pass along manufacturer warnings to patients.
We know that's not being done. In fact, it's worse than you think. It's prohibited. If they do pass along these warnings, they are accused of violating the model ethical code published by the American Dental Association, and in fact are prosecuted by the dental boards of the 50 states. And those prosecutions have not only occurred, they are continuing to occur today. I've got 5 of those cases in my office right now. Dentists are brought in, attacked, written letters for doing nothing more than warning the American public, their patients and prospective patients, that mercury presents a risk of harm, just like these warnings from CUR say.
Okay. Next.
Yes, I want to ask the clerk to play a 1-minute video on occupational exposure and mercury vapor.
When dentists go to dental school, they're taught that mixed dental amalgam is completely inert.
They taught us nothing about protecting the staff from the dangers of mercury vapor.
And so when a dentist goes in to grind out an amalgam filling, he is creating tremendous quantities of mercury particulate.
Their dental drill runs at about 400,000 RPM, and it sends a shower of micron-size and sub-micron-size particles everywhere. It's tens of thousands of parts per million. I've never seen levels of mercury this high. That's pretty much unheard of in any type of work environment.
Everyone working around hazardous chemicals and other toxic substances has a right to know of possible dangers and how to protect themselves.
When patients see us dressed like this, there's no way they could believe mercury is safe in their mouths.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Jeff Green, and I actually passed out earlier a single double-sided page document to you that was supposed to basically cover briefly some of the things that you already saw in these first 2 minutes. One of them had to do with the learned intermediary. One of the difficult processes that you have in front of you is, in most cases when you get in a controversial issue, the safest place is to rely on an expert. Unfortunately, what's being sold to you is that the Dental Association wants to portray itself as being an expert. In truth, if you look at what I've already sent out to you, the first thing you should know is the American Dental Association, in a lawsuit that had to do with their claims about safety, about dental mercury and amalgams, the most important thing that jumped out with that is that they claim that they don't have any duty of care whatsoever. Secondarily, the other part that you should recognize is that there's an unfair competition. If somebody actually follows the law, what happens is that they're going to dress differently, they're going to act differently, and they're going to tell them that the mercury amalgams don't work. And unfortunately, it means it's unfair competition. Yes.
I yield my time.
I yield my time.
I'm Yunji, and yielding my time for Nita.
Good evening, Mayor Bates and esteemed City Council members. My name is Anita Vasquez-Tabell. I am the Executive Director of Californians for Green Dentistry and the International Coordinator for the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, also known as IAMT. Mayor Bates, we salute you in your environmental leadership as the co-founder of the East Bay Green Corridor. We also commend you and the Council for the national recognition that you have achieved through the environmental, solar, and green city that you have created. Californians for Green Dentistry has successfully garnered 3 Southern California city resolutions over the last few years, supporting mercury-free dentistry. We support Berkeley in this positive action, which is the first in Northern California to follow the South. I have actively participated in all of the United Nations Environmental Program sessions as a stakeholder through the IAMT. I will be returning to Japan to participate in the signing of the historical Minamata Convention on Mercury Treaty, then immediately go to Rio de Janeiro, where the IAMT will be launching its first technical assistance program. This program was designed to transition countries out of the use of mercury in dentistry by utilizing safe mercury removal protocols, proper handling of mercury waste, and replacing fillings with non-mercury restorative materials. The problems associated with dental mercury go far beyond the horrific environmental impact that has been well documented globally. We now have colleagues who are studying societal loads, meaning what people carry in their mouths that will become a part of the environment through cremation, burial, human waste, and respiration. According to the Mercury Policy Project, the #1 source of mercury in the wastewater comes from the dental offices. We also must look at the social injustice problem in the lower socioeconomic societies around the globe, and certainly in our cities. These groups only receive mercury fillings when alternative non-mercury fillings have existed for decades. I have discovered that in all societies, except where banned, that the poor and disenfranchised are receiving a hugely disproportionate number of mercury fillings. This is unacceptable, contemptible, and immoral. These are the citizens who need our help and support the most and are least able to deal with the health problems that can occur through this toxic exposure. And worse yet, there are no disclosures to these patients that mercury is a known neurotoxin and carcinogen under Prop 65. I have spent years working with minorities from around the world, and I can assure each and every one of you in this room tonight that if we don't take a stand against toxic mercury, you can be sure that the people that have it in their heads today will die with it implanted in their teeth. In California, a law was passed by Jerome Horton, which allows Medicaid patients the choice of non-mercury fillings. However, this information is not disclosed to the patients. This is social injustice at its worst. No one on the planet can defend mercury. It is indefensible. I ask all of you, what will your legacy be at this very critical moment in time? Will you vote in favor for your citizens and the constituents who voted you into office to serve and protect them and the environment in which they live? Or will you vote for the industry that continues to misrepresent the safety of mercury in dental fillings around the world, even though it has never been classified by the FDA? This is your choice, and how you vote today will follow you the rest of your lives. As I mentioned earlier, I will be attending the signing of the treaty and will give a formal report to the delegations, then to Rio de Janeiro to report to our Brazilian colleagues as well. I am certain that this forward-thinking, progressive leader in so many outstanding environmental initiatives will not let me or the world down with your vote. Thank you very much.
I will be playing a 1-minute video.
The of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, a scientific organization made up of dental, medical, and research professionals, immediately started combing through the new rule and found many glaring errors, all in favor of the safety of amalgam.
The petition for reconsideration challenged the FDA final rule on regulatory grounds and scientific grounds. We found 27 propositions of error, and I mean big errors, in the FDA's final rule. And what we found was that in a very biased and unabashed way, FDA had very unfairly attempted to push the reference dose, the actual absorbed dose that is defined as safe, higher, while artificially lowering their assessment of exposure. If you do this thing properly, we can show that subpopulations in this country are actually receiving far more than a legitimate reference dose. And I can only assume that it's political influence brought by the agency.
Thank you. I understand.
We hold the item over after.
Hi, I'm a general dentist practicing for the last 20 years, and I yield my time to Dr. Turley.
I also yield my time to Dr. Turley.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Ariane Turley, and I'm a practicing dentist in Berkeley. I'm also the Chief Dental Officer for La Clínica de la Raza in East Oakland. And being in public health, I'm used to being the odd man out in terms of discussions on opinions of things. I'm here to talk to you as a UC grad, as the dental coordinator for the Berkeley Free Clinic. In '83, I helped unpack and set up what is now the Lifelong, which was the over 60s clinic. And after I graduated, I went to work for La Clínica, since I am bilingual. I've spent the last 27 years of my life working towards increasing access to quality care to patients, regardless of their level of income. I have a real concern with any time any government agency tries to come in and help us by regulation. You increase the barriers to care. We have fought very hard the last few years to reinstate adult dental, and I'm very happy that it will be back in state in May. My only alternatives right now to patients that do not have insurance is to extract their teeth. If you walk into Alta Bates with a broken arm and you have Medi-Cal, your only option isn't to amputate your arm, and that's all the only options that we have as dentists right now under the Medicaid program. Contrary to what's been said this evening, is that dental composites in California are a Medicaid benefit. You have the option and you have the choice. Regardless of your level of income, I have to offer you anything and everything possible, including implants, regardless of your ability to pay. But many people have a lot of problems with being able to pay for services. So we're trying to control the costs, but that doesn't mean you don't give patients options, because patients decide. We believe that we go through the treatment plans, explain what the materials are, what the costs and the cost benefits are. Contrary to some of my colleagues, composite restorations do not work in everyone's mouth, in particular if you have poor oral hygiene. We have homeless patients who have very limited access to care, and we need to put in what will work the best for the longest amount of time. I think it's really important that you need to look at who we serve. This is not private practice. These are not people who have constant access to care. There are unintended consequences to any decision that's made. I was on the State Dental Board. I was one of the authors of the Dental Materials Fact Sheet. I recognize many of you because we were having this discussion 12 years ago, and we're still having it. I'm hoping that in the next 12 years, this won't be the discussion we'll be having, and instead, we can put all of our energies towards preventing what causes dental caries, because it's a communicable, preventable disease, instead of having these arguments that increase barriers to care. Thank you.
I yield my time to the next speaker.
I yield my time to Dr. Kennedy, and I urge you to extend your meeting by half an hour.
I yield my time as well.
My 4 minutes has been shortened, but that's okay. I'll speak quickly and you can keep up. The PowerPoint basically shows you that we've been in this argument for ever and ever, and it is a very simple argument. It is, are you going to tell the patient what you're using? No. The dentists call it Royal Mineral Secundum to cover up the fact it was mercury. Then they call them silver fillings to cover up the fact it's mercury. What you're seeing here tonight is the disingenuous argument that you're taking away a tool that they need to use on poor people. No, it's the worst way to fix a tooth. It makes it break, and the tooth has to be extracted later. Drilling a filling into a tooth and putting composite in it brings the strength back up to 100%. Drilling a filling and putting an amalgam in it takes the strength of that tooth down 75%. Putting a filling in it brings it back up none. That's why you have broken teeth. That's good for business. And if you really wanted to increase access for dental care, then you would have trade associations stop blocking assistants and dental nurses from assisting in dental care as they do in other countries. In Alaska, they fought a dental nurse being able to fly out into the boondocks to render care, and there's only 4 dentists in Alaska, but they don't want anybody other than the dentist to do the care. That's access to care. They put barriers to access to care and then complain about it. I'm sorry. It's also a conflict of interest. When the same people own the insurance company that provides the Medi-Cal coverage, and then they don't want to give them an option. What would be the harm if you told the patient, oh, by the way, today I've chosen a Mercury filling for you. I think it's the best way to fix your tooth. That's all you're asking. And that gets them excited because they don't want to tell the truth. I'm going to go I'm going to show you a 25-year-old filling that they touched, and mercury came to the surface. There is a horribly unethical experiment. And one of the questions I ask is, how can you tell they're lying? Their lips are moving. How can you tell they know they're lying? It's how they choose to present their data. They did a case-controlled experiment on orphans. They did not even tell them they were receiving mercury fillings. And then they said, oh, Group A is the same as Group B. Well, a case-controlled experiment had 250 kids. When you go back and you separate it out, the child that got one filling, they even had children with mercury fillings in the controls. That's called cheating. You move those children over. It was a government study. They can't hide the data. The children with 2 fillings, 3 fillings, 4 fillings, 5 fillings. And what they showed was that the more fillings the child had, the more impaired the kidneys were. So when you want to talk about a cheap filling, how about dialysis? How much of that do we have to put up with? This is the National Institute of Craniofacial Research dental study at Casapia. A horribly unethical study, should never have been done. It's designed to fail. But when you actually take the data, and they can't hide the data, it showed that they damaged those children's kidneys, and if the child was a subset of the population called a coproporphyrinogen, CPOX, they harmed them more. So when they say there's no proof of harm, not true. They've proven that they harmed the children of Casapia. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Monica McVeigh-Pearson. I'm a Berkeley resident in District 4, and I am also a dentist at one of the local community health centers. And our patients are primarily low income. And I'm also very concerned about the impact of restricting amalgam use and what that could implicate for our patients that are low income. All of our patients, regardless of private practice, community health clinics, rich or poor, are given options when it comes to their teeth, and the restorative options. And amalgam is not perfect, but composite is also not perfect. And so I do not feel personally comfortable as a dentist recommending composites to my patients. I let my patients make up their own decisions. We've been using amalgam for a long time. We haven't been using composites for that long. And I don't comfortably feel I can recommend composites to patients because we don't yet know what there may be in composites, including already we found BPA. Thank you.
Yeah, question for you. Come back to the question. Hold down your mic. Hold down your mic.
When you say you inform each patient, is this really informed consent? Do they really understand the implications of each alternative that you're offering them? Or do you just verbally give it to them because the law compels you to?
First of all, the law in California is that we have to make available to them a copy of the dental material fact sheet, and that explains the different options, all of the different materials. And so when people ask me, I sort of measure their level of interest. Most people want to know either what's more durable or what's least expensive, or they choose the composite on the basis of aesthetics. So some people entirely leave the decision up to the dentist and they say whatever you think is best. Other people want to have a more detailed conversation. Me personally, if I have a patient that isn't coming to an obvious decision, I will not place a filling. I'll tell them, you know what, go home. There's lots of information on the internet. You can, come up with your own decision and then come back and let me know what you want. That's a very few patients.
While you're emphasizing the financial desirability of having one of these, do you also emphasize the health risks?
Again, we don't know exactly what the health risks may be of composites, and so therefore I cannot specifically tell them a composite is definitely safer. So I'll tell them that there is mercury in amalgams. Some people consider that to be an issue. I'll tell them that composites have a glue. They tend to break down. We tend to have to change them more frequently. And again, if the patient can't come to a decision with the dental material fact sheet and the information that I'm giving them, they are not comfortable with making an obvious decision, I tell them to go home. There's lots of information available that they can look up and come back on a day when they're prepared to have a decision and a filling.
Mayor Bates, I just have one quick question.
Sure.
So say I'm a patient and I've already had one filling at your practice, and I am going to get a subsequent filling. My understanding of the state law is that you only get the fact sheet once. So do you give the fact sheet to the patient every single time?
We're required to give the fact sheet once. We're required every time that we do a treatment on a patient to determine what their preference or most appropriate treatment is for the day. So that will specifically happen every time they have an exam, and also, you know, once you've had the decision or the conversation, you may not continue to discuss it, but that just depends. But definitely at each exam, they're given their options, and usually at each appointment, unless a patient has made an obvious obvious indication to you what they want it to be.
So, but they don't necessarily get that fact sheet, all the subsequent fillings that they may get.
So the fact sheet needs to be made available to them, and so we can either give them a copy. It's available in the clinic. If they want another copy, they can have it. It's available online.
But you don't give it to them?
No, that's correct. We make it available to them.
Do they get any written information about the materials that are used?
On a one-time basis, or as they would require, but we are not required to give it to them every single time. But that's kind of once you've discussed it with them and they've made their decision, why would you go over it time after time again, having the same discussion once they've indicated to you what they want?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, please.
Hi, thanks for the time. I'm Tala Aziz. I'm a general dentist in Berkeley. I've been a dentist for 13 years. And I just want to make some points. Well, there's clearly disagreements in toxicology. And I went to dental school, and I've heard both sides. And I think the dentist should be able to make these decisions. I happen to fall in between. You know, I myself, I can believe into some of the toxicology, and amalgam to us is toxic. For us, putting amalgam is toxic to us and to my staff, and to remove amalgam is even more toxic, even to the patient. So I don't recommend removing amalgam just for the sake of removing it, because you are really exposing a lot more mercury in the vapor. So I just want to have us to have the authority, and there is studies out there. Dentists can read all the studies. There's different studies that support different sides. We want to have the option to choose. And also, I want to give you these out too, because I found they were weird. I found them on one of the tables.
Okay, next, please.
Good evening, members of the council. A couple things I'd like to address in response to what the dentists have just said to you. First of all, this idea of BPA. There has been research, there have been risk analyses done on the risk of BPA versus mercury, and the risk is considered negligible as far as BPA is concerned versus mercury. You can do the research. If we had more time, we could actually present the research. We'd be happy to do that for you. In terms of the poor people argument, we see that as a red herring. There's no restriction of access here. We're still giving people the option of getting whatever fillings they want. We just want them to have scientific information. That's all we're requesting. Finally, I'd like to talk about politics. Very quickly, Mr. Capitelli, I'm very upset. You just released this amended compromise. We saw last week that you did not compromise.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the time for another 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, I move that we suspend the rules and extend for 15 more minutes to 11:45.
Okay, call the roll.
Councilmember Mile? Yes. Moore?
Last extension.
Anderson?
Yes.
Arreguin? Capitelli? Wengraf?
Yes.
Worthington?
Yes.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mayor Bates?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
May I have a few extra seconds since Mr. Worthington?
I apologize for
No worries.
You didn't lose any time. You shouldn't have lost any time.
We'll give you another few seconds. Go ahead.
Okay,
10
thanks.
seconds.
I'll be very quick. Look, Mr. Capitelli and Ms. Mayo, you guys were charged with creating compromise. You clearly didn't do that, as I discussed last week. You released this half an hour ago. Why didn't you release this when people had time to look it over? Please vote in favor of Mr. Ragoin's workshop so you can actually have the time to consider this. Thank you.
Okay, we want to hear from... Is there anybody after this gentleman? Please, come forward. If you're going to talk, come forward. Okay.
My name is Dr. Whitney Johnson. I'm a practicing dentist in Berkeley for 20 years. I have never placed an amalgam in my career. I do not choose to do that due to the toxicity. I just believe that there are better restorative materials out there. I think you're barking up the wrong tree when you're coming after dentists. It's the insurance companies that are requiring the dentist to do the fillings because that is what the insurance company will pay for their client. I want to point out 2 or 3 inconsistencies. You had a dentist come up here who said he was an instructor in UCLA. He mentioned that there were 24 cranial nerves. There's only 12. They said that dentists are the largest contributor of dental amalgam in the wastewater. Of course, we are. We're the only ones that use dental amalgam. Mercury, when mercury goes into the wastewater, mercury comes out of our watershed, that is upstream from the McCulmy watershed. And in order for them to take it out, they put it. It's the water company that puts the mercury.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we want to hear from the 2 commissioners.
Okay. Good evening, council members. My name is Pamela Spike. I was the chairperson at the time that this was considered at the Health Commission. Just as a quick review, and I'm sure that you're all fairly well up on this, the Health Commission was approached in regards to looking into mercury amalgams from a public health and medical point of view at the end of last year. Their recommendations after much work were that there be informed consent because the residents of Berkeley were infuriated when they found out that mercury was being placed and they hadn't been told. In addition, a sort of giveaway was that all other regulations on dentists would continue, and that was just to really sort of reward the good work that they've been doing in terms of that. And then, last but not least, they were asked to avoid or limit mercury. We were told by the dental group that there would be no way that any recommendations would be complied with, that it would have had to be something mandated, and they would not be happy with a mandatory. The next thing that happened is that the CEAC was brought in, and they were to address toxicology issues specifically. And I'm going to transfer myself for a second to Laura, who's the chairperson for CEAC, so she can tell you what the toxicology perspective was.
I didn't know you were going to do that. No. So we were asked to look at the CEAC, the Environmental Commission, was asked to help kind of look at the scientific evidence surrounding the toxicology, as well as we did look at some of the epidemiology, because I'm more of an epidemiologist, related to amalgam and health. And, you know, I don't really need to reiterate much, but there's a lot out there, and, you know, in epidemiology and in toxicology as well, that, you know, there's not very clear-cut evidence. Usually it's very difficult. But we felt as a whole that there was enough out there. You know, different agencies like the California EPA have listed it on Proposition 65 as a chemical that causes developmental harm. So we saw lots of other authoritative bodies that were talking about it like that. So we went ahead with our recommendation, which is a little bit different than Pam's, but along that same lines, that we felt that the toxicology and epidemiology was there, that was warranted enough that we needed to take action.
Thank you. And so the third resolution that came along, or the third recommendation, was from the city manager. And it, although it was very sort of in line with what CEAC was requesting. It was a request. It's non-binding in nature. So that's not going to really work in terms of making any changes for our residents. The item came to council July 16th and was actually then brought to today with 2 additional proposals, one being the 4th one from Capitelli and Mayo. This was to be a compromise, and it was really a variation of staff proposals. The 5th has been a proposed work session based on the fact that there is so much controversy between the 2 sides. The recommendation is that there be a work session. I'm giving you my recommendation as a healthcare professional and what I would recommend to my patients if you were my patients. There's just a lot of data, and I don't want you to feel like you have to make a quick decision right now. I realize this is very difficult and that you get millions of phone calls every day about this, and I'm sorry.
So that's the position of the commission? What's the commission?
The position of the commission is simply that we inform our residents. Okay. Yes, that we inform them, that we do not have the dentist decide that they can make the decision, but that in fact we give informed consent to the patient.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Can I?
So, council members, who wants to be recognized? We have 8 minutes. Courtney.
I'll start. I just want to start out by saying I don't think that there's anyone in this room who doesn't care a lot about the people that we care about and who we want to serve. And we may have a different interpretation of how to go about it, but I don't want to vilify anybody here. Everybody's here trying to do the best that they can, and that's how I feel about myself as well and people who are on the dais here. I think that there's a lot of information that came up tonight that is cause for concern. Very clearly, I'm not a scientist. I think that there's only so much that we're going to be able to do, given some of the things that we learned tonight about who's actually pulling the strings from somewhere. I'd like to go through what Councilmember Capitelli and I worked on, which we did based on the Environmental Commission's
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to mention it. Did you want me to mention what the Environmental Commission's proposal was?
Yes, we don't have too much time, but I've used most of we've used most of your format because it's so comprehensive. It covered everything. So the resolution, I'd like to read the resolution because this is actually what we're voting on. The City of Berkeley is charged with protecting the public health and welfare of its residents. We've adopted the precautionary principle. Some of the members of the public have expressed serious concern about the safety of dental amalgam. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration's most recent labeling instructions to dentists state that very limited or no clinical information is available. And I know that was attacked quite a bit tonight. On average, about 25% of cavities restored in the City of Berkeley are filled with dental amalgam, and I understand that that's decreasing all the time. Whereas our Berkeley City Attorney has determined that requiring local dentists to take specific actions is preempted by state law. So we're going to do as much as we can, at least I felt that we were, in going through what we felt we could message to our dental community, and in fact to the community at large, because that's what this is really all about. It's informing, continuing to inform the community. We clearly need to have a better approach to this that works better. The Health Commission and Community Environmental Commission made specific recommendations, many of which have been incorporated into this resolution. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council that as recommended by the Health Commission, dentists practicing in Berkeley are urged to follow applicable regulations regarding dental amalgam practices and separators, preventing mercury from reaching the environment. Be it further resolved as recommended by the Advisory Commission, and I have to say as I don't want to say that it was completely recommended by them because it's not a mirror of what they recommended. So be it further resolved that and I'm going to take that whole thing out. Starting in number 1, strongly support local, national, and worldwide efforts to reduce exposure to anthropogenic mercury. Encourage dentists practicing in Berkeley to consider limiting or transitioning away from the use of dental amalgam, and that's a change to my number 2. I'm alerting the clerk that it reads now, encourage dentists practicing in Berkeley to consider limiting or transitioning away from the use of dental amalgam. Request the Dental Board of California to remind dentists that they have a legal obligation to provide the DBC fact sheet to all new patients and to existing patients of record on the initial placement of any dental restoration, including and not limited to amalgams and composites. Request dental offices to post standard Prop 65 labels or posters, regardless of the number of employees. Provide the Dental Board of California provide the Dental Board of California's dental materials fact sheet to each patient. Direct staff to write a letter to the DBC to update their dental material fact sheet. Support continued education and advisories for Berkeley residents about potential risks associated with consuming fish caught in the Berkeley Marina, that's from the Commission, and exposure to mercury from other sources. Direct staff to provide copies of this resolution to the city, state, and federal representatives and other cities in Alameda County with a request that they use their authority to take the necessary steps to phase down the use of mercury in dentistry. Write to the FDA and National Institutes of Health to evaluate the knowledge gaps in the risks of dental amalgam. Support the UN efforts in use of mercury products. Write to the World Health Organization to pledge support for the phase down of use of dental mercury. Insist that dentists follow the applicable regulations regarding dental amalgam practices and the use of separators to prevent mercury from reaching the environment. That's in this as much as we can get forward. I think we all have to work on getting better at this. We all want our kids to have the best. Everyone should have the best that they possibly can, and it really is very irritating that the cheapest seems to be what's promoted by particularly insurance companies, but don't we get that picture? So I will move this, and I would like to say that I'm not supporting a work session. I think we've had as much as we can really make decisions about here tonight, and that's my proposal.
So, okay, so 2 seconds. So I'm going to move that we extend for another 15 minutes.
Second.
Will all members want to speak? Not except you.
Well, if we close without...
So I would say 15 more minutes. So move that we have another 15 minutes. Is there a second?
I would like... Well,
Yes, I seconded it.
Okay. So...
Can I also just say that we
have to call the roll. You're going to
go ahead.
Call the roll.
To extend to midnight, Councilmember Mayo.
Yes.
Moore. Anderson.
Yes.
Arreguin.
Yes.
Capitelli.
Yes.
Wengraf.
Yes.
Worthington.
Yes.
Wozniak.
Yes.
Mayor Bates.
Yes, okay.
Can I just close by saying that I had conversations with Marty Lynch, who's the executive director of our lifelong clinics, and they were very concerned about going too far with what was proposed, and I hope we have, we've reached a happy medium here.
So
happy, I wouldn't say.
Given the time constraint, I'm going to ask everybody if you can keep their remarks to 2 minutes. Okay? I mean, we don't have much choice. We have 6 speakers, 5 speakers. So, Councilman Arreguin, you're recognized. Hopefully you can get it within 2 minutes.
So, well, I think given that Councilor Mayo had probably more than 2 minutes, it's fair to let somebody who's presenting an alternate perspective have a little bit more time. But
well, I mean,
but I'll just speak. So, I think many of the recommendations that have been put forward in Councilmember Capitelli and Mayo's proposal are good. But the key difference between their proposal and my proposed ordinance is the word request rather than the word require. And the basic, and that's not to disparage the work that they've done. I'm just trying to highlight the difference. And the basic reason why the way that their item is written is suggesting that we encourage dentists to do things rather than not requiring them is the idea that we're somehow preempted by state law.
Not necessarily.
Well, it says it explicitly here on page 2 of your report.
It says that we've been advised so, but it's not, you can't assume that I base
Well, let him present. He's got 2 minutes.
Okay.
So, well, certainly that was the advice that we got from the city attorney. So I've submitted this evening a legal analysis, trying to understand, are we preempted or not? Because this is the most important question that we need to answer. Because if we're not preempted from taking certain action, we have a certain range of actions that we could potentially take. And my conclusion is that we're not explicitly preempted from requiring that dental practices provide the material fact sheet. Right now, they only have to provide it once. But if you sign up as a patient and you get all this information and you come in subsequently for fillings down the road, you're not going to remember getting that fact sheet. In fact, you may not even have a copy of it. So I don't see the reason why we can't require that these dental practices provide the fact sheet, which is what my ordinance proposes to do. So I don't think we are preempted, but there is an open question as to whether we are preempted or not, and I think we need more information about that. And then I greatly appreciate all the work that the nonprofit organizations do in providing dental care to people in our community. But I don't understand how providing information that they already provide once to a patient would create barriers to care. Information is never a barrier to quality care. And I just don't understand how this would limit the ability for a dentist to provide mercury fillings. In fact, they wouldn't be prohibited from doing it. It's just providing information so patients can make an informed decision in consultation with their dentist. So I think people, regardless of income, should have the right to know. We have a precautionary principle, and adopting some sort of mandatory requirement for disclosure and information is important to not only implement the basic principle of our precautionary principle, but right now there's no way of ensuring that dentists provide this fact sheet, and we need to add more teeth to state law. So I think there's an unprecedented number of proposals that have been put forward on this issue, which is why I think having a discussion at a workshop would be more appropriate. However, if the council wants to take action this evening, I strongly encourage them to adopt the proposed ordinance, because what it will do is simply provide the same information dentists provide once already to their patients every time they get a filling. It won't stop mercury fillings. It won't stop dental practices from being able to serve low-income patients. It simply will give patients information they should know to make informed decisions.
Okay, I gave you way more. I gave you way more than 2 minutes because other people dropped off. Now they would come back on again. Councilman Anderson.
You know, I resent us being shoehorned into some time-specific, limited discussion of this when we know that we haven't completed this discussion at all. You know, for us to rush ahead and make assumptions without the benefit of a fuller and more engaged discussion by this body and by the experts in a less controlled environment where they have more than 1 or 2 minutes and had to cobble together things rather than present them in a cogent way is ridiculous for us to be trying to make a decision on this tonight. I mean, that's stupid. It's just downright stupid. And it's it's just another example of when somebody said, oh, this is going to cost us more money to do something that promotes better health, then, of course, we err on the side of frugality. Now, that's foolishness. That's pound foolish. And I'm just going to say, look, I want to see a workshop. I want to see a thorough discussion. I want to see more developed people running up to do 1-minute clips on our screen and stuff. That's ridiculous. That's not how we make decisions. That's not how we make intelligent decisions. So let's have the workshop. What are you afraid of? What is anybody afraid of when it comes to providing more information to people who have to make decisions about their health? Now, you know, everybody on the dais claims to be a big advocate of health in the city. Well, this is one small little gesture in that direction. It doesn't mean that you sacrifice everything you believe in, but we ought to at least believe in informing the public, giving the public a democratic right. It's not unusual for the people to be out ahead of the politicians, and they are on this issue out ahead of us. And we ought to be trying to catch up rather than retard the struggle.
Yeah, I have no doubt that mercury is a neurotoxin. But what I'm concerned about is whether or not the city of Berkeley actually has the legal authority to compel dentists to do what you're asking us to tell them to do. And Jesse pinpointed it, that's at the heart. Jesse, you've given us what you call a legal opinion, but what lawyer wrote this?
This is based on my analysis of my office's analysis of it was vetted by some attorneys, but based on reading the legislative history, reading the law, this is providing one perspective. Just because our city attorney provides a perspective doesn't mean that it's conclusive. There are multiple legal perspectives. That's why we should try to find out, get to the bottom.
Okay, so, I think we should ask our legislators at the state level to get an attorney general opinion.
I support that.
Second.
Because I think we have a disagreement here between our city attorney and your office about what's legally, what's legal.
So you should actually make that an amendment to the motion that we are requesting.
Yes, I'd like to make that as a friendly amendment.
Amendment that
to request
our legislative delegation to
Senator Hancock or Assemblywoman Skinner request an opinion from the Attorney General.
Right.
So which motion? Because there are two on the floor. Yours. Oh, thank you.
The main motion. Councilmember.
If it's acceptable.
Yes, totally.
Councilman Worthington? Councilman Worthington?
I just wanted to make sure if there's a substitute motion on the floor.
There is. Is there? Did you move it?
Well, it could have been a motion. I would have made it a motion. But
okay, let's say you made it a motion.
And I second.
Let's say you made it a substitute. Okay, you second it.
Okay, I think that the council members are making good faith efforts to try to understand complicated questions, but based on the questions that still remain before us, I think it's premature for us to take action in a definitive way on this recommendation. I think there's some really good language in the new proposal that we got tonight. I think there's some really bad language, and I don't think at midnight that we're likely to go line by line and vote for the good words and get rid of the bad sentences. So I think having the work session is the most prudent thing for us to do. That would give us time to seriously examine it. It would give us time to try to research the questions that Councilmember Wengraf has posed and really do our due diligence on the questions. So I think it would be counterproductive to have a divided vote where some of us vote for this language and some of us vote against it. I think it's far better to actually do our homework and come up with something that we can really have solid scientific and legal basis to decide. I think the work session is our best chance of getting that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should approach it step by step. I don't know why anybody would object to this motion, Councilmember Miles and my proposal tonight. Step 2 would be to find out whether we should have any further discussion, and that would be the Attorney General's opinion. And if the Attorney General opines that yes, we can regulate beyond this, then we can have a workshop, although I frankly think that a workshop will not provide any additional information than we heard tonight. We would just have larger organized groups on both sides, both contesting the validity of the other side's argument. So if we adopt this tonight, get the Attorney General's opinion, if it comes back in the negative, then there's nothing more to discuss. If it comes back that we can, in fact, require. then we'll go on.
So, do you want to speak?
Well, the Attorney General's not going to issue an opinion. It's probably the Legislative Council.
We already have one
but
opinion from the Legislative Council.
I mean, I don't know if the
So
AG gives
we'll get one
opinions on
from
these
both.
things.
We'll ask for a request from both. So anyway, let me just say, I feel like we should require the dentist to do this, but I'm also of the opinion that we don't know if we can. So if we get back a decision from the Legislative Council or the Attorney General that we can do it, we'll bring this back and we'll pass the require. I'm sure the votes will be here, but tonight they're not. Call the roll on the motion, please.
This is the substitute motion.
The substitute motion. Substitute
Schedule
to
a
have
work
a
session.
It's
workshop.
Jesse's item.
Have the workshop. Call the roll and have
To
the
schedule a work session.
work session.
Yeah.
Councilmember Mayo.
No.
Moore.
Abstain.
Anderson.
Yes.
Arreguin.
Yes.
Capitelli.
No.
Wengraf. Worthington.
Yes.
Wozniak.
No.
Mayor Bates.
Saying,
Motion fails.
okay, on the main motion?
Could you add, if you could accept as an amendment, accepting this report as part of the motion, the report you submitted tonight as a supplemental
Yes,
item?
I
Just
forgot
add that
to
into
do
your
that,
motion?
yes. I'll do that.
And the seconder
Sir,
accepts that?
Do you accept that? Yes.
And then also,
So, and we'd also ask for this legal opinion.
yeah,
Thank you.
call the roll.
I question, if we haven't made a motion previously to accept this in order for the purpose of discussing it, after we've had a discussion and people have already expressed their opinions, it seems odd that we're, after the fact, we're saying we're going to accept and consider something that's already been discussed.
No, she was a clarification.
It was read into the record, actually.
He read the whole thing. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Mayo.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Anderson.
No.
Arreguin.
No.
Capitelli.
Yes.
Wengraf.
Yes.
Worthington.
No.
Wozniak.
Yes.
Mayor Bates.
Yeah.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
So that's our last item.